Welcome to the James Bond Film Retrospective, a fun look at the films that define British super spy James Bond. And this time we'll be taking a look at the very first James Bond film, Dr. No, which very recently turned 50 years old. Happy birthday, Dr. No! Oh no, I knew I should have gotten a present. Anyway, let's head straight into Dr. No. And we begin with, what's this? Yes, our very first gun barrel sequence, which would appear in all subsequent Bond films. But nobody knew that at the time. It was meant to be a one-off. It's not even Sean Connery during the gun barrel sequence, but stuntman Bob Simmons. And after the cameraman gets shot, it all turns into abstract madness. Then again, it was the 1960s, and it's fun to see where future Bond openings will get their inspiration from. After some psychedelic dancing and some silhouette silliness, the film eventually begins. And we follow these three poor blind people all the way to a place called the Queen's Club, where we meet these chaps having a nice game of cards. But as one of these card players steps out to run a quick errand, we find out they're not blind at all. They're actually really good at shooting people, which is lucky because they're assassins. As the poor man's body is taken away, we cut to this woman trying to make a radio transmission. But that too gets cut short when those dastardly assassins show up and shoot her too, leaving lots of red paint. All that just to steal the scripts for Dr. No? Something doesn't quite add up here. Before we worry about how they're going to film the rest of the film without the script, let's see how they introduce Bond. This scene unveils him perfectly. I especially like how they only show his hands and the back of his head for a good portion of the scene, while he talks with the lady across the table, until we get that grand unveil and that famous line.
I admire your courage, Miss...
Trench. Sylvia Trench. I admire your luck, Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
It's a pretty much perfect intro to Bond. They do a great job in the first scene with Bond to establish what kind of man he is. Connery plays him perfectly, coming off as cool and suave, but not full of himself.
Looks like you're out to get me.
But Bond can't enjoy the casino all night long. He's got important secret agent business to attend to. But just before he leaves, he arranges to have a spot of golf with the lovely Miss Trench. And Bond makes his way to MI6. And it wouldn't be classic Bond without the throwing of the hat and some repartee with Miss Moneypenny.
What gives?
Me, given an ounce of encouragement.
You never take me to dinner looking like this, James. You never take me to dinner, period.
I would, you know. Only M would have me court-martialed for illegal use of government property.
But that's soon interrupted when M wants a little chat with Bond. And we get our very first scene with M, played by Bernard Lee. He portrays M as a no-nonsense smart man who's wise to Bond's tricks. M explains that fellow agent Strangeways has not reported in from Jamaica by radio, and neither has his secretary. I'm pretty sure they're dead. He explains that Strangeways had been investigating, alongside with the CIA, the disruption of NASA rocket launches by radio wave jamming. That seemed to be coming from, where else? Jamaica. So M sends Bond off to investigate. Wait 1 second, rewind a bit. Before he goes, he's got a pack, of course, so he goes home. And my God, does Bond live in a nice place. Just look at it. But something's wrong. There's an intruder. Is it a dastardly Spectre agent sent to thwart Bond's plans? Or is it a gang of street toughs stealing his lovely television set? Nope, it's neither of those things. It's the woman he met at the casino, of course. She's broken in to play a spot of golf. But instead of calling the police for breaking and entering, Bond lets her stay for a bit of sex. And then he's off to Jamaica. Once Bond arrives in Jamaica, this lady takes a sneaky photo of him. Okay, she's probably the worst person at subtlety. That's a pretty giant camera. Couldn't you get a spy camera, one of those small ones? Anyway, Bond's met at the airport by a driver. But Bond isn't convinced. A quick phone call and Bond finds out that a driver was never sent. But Bond decides to go with the fake driver anyway. Because hey, why not? It'll be a bit of fun. On their road trip, Bond notices he's getting followed. But after losing the other car, Bond's had enough of the fake driver's fake ways and starts to beat him up. But just as Bond's about to get some information out of him, the man asks for a cigarette, and Bond, being the gentleman he is, obliges. But that's a mistake, because the cigarettes are full of cyanide. So the man dies. And Bond can continue on his merry way investigating. While searching Strangeways' place, Bond finds a curious receipt to do with rock samples, and a photograph of Strangeways with a mysterious man who was driving the car that was tailing him earlier. Before Bond goes to meet the bridge players at the Queen's Club, he sets up a few things to detect if his place has been searched. Will he use some super duper gadgets he got from Q? No! Some talcum powder and a hair from his toupee will do just fine. It's nice to see Bond being resourceful. The gentleman at the bridge club reveals Strangeways had been chartering a boat with a man called Quarrel. So Bond goes to meet with Quarrel. Lo and behold, it's the chap from the photograph. But it doesn't start off well. Bond gets into a quarrel with Quarrel. See what I did there? But CIA agent Felix Leiter shows up to stop the commotion. He explains they're all working for the same team, investigating the mysterious radio waves and the disappearance of Strangeways. So they all become best friends and go for a bit of a booze up. During their lads' night out, Quarrel explains that he'd been guiding Strangeways around the nearby islands. Collecting mineral samples, he also mentions a Dr. No, the owner of an island known as Crab Key, which has a bauxite mine, but is heavily defended against trespassers. During their conversation, the world's worst secret photographer returns. But Bond has had enough of the paparazzi and presses her to tell him who she's working for. But even with the threat of having her arm broken, she refuses to talk. After their night out, Bond is almost killed by those fake blind people, without ever knowing it. The next day, Bond meets with Professor Dent, one of the bridge players. Having found that receipt the day before for rock sample testing, he asks about them. But Dent fobs Bond off, telling him that they're ordinary rocks. But the professor's been spooked. He makes his way to Crab Island to talk to Dr. No. I really like in this scene how they don't actually show Dr. No. Instead, having his voice echo ominously into an almost empty room works really well. We know nothing of this Dr. No, but he comes across as a mysterious and dangerous man.
Sit down. Why have you disobeyed my strictest rule and come in daylight?
I had to. Bond came to see me this morning.
Yes, I know. I gave orders that he should be killed. Why is he still alive?
It's revealed that the good professor works for Dr. No, being responsible for the deaths of Strangeways and his secretary. But Dent's hit on Bond being botched. He's sent away with a new way to kill Bond. A tarantula. Because that seems like the most practical way to kill someone. And that night... Oh, a terrible nightmare. I dreamt that I hadn't had sex for at least 2 hours. No, that evil tarantula has turned up. But Bond promptly kills it with his best gadget, his mighty shoe. And a little help from the orchestra, of course. Eventually Bond gets his own back on the murderous Professor Dent, catching him red-handed as he shoots an empty bed.
Drop it, Professor, and behind you.
This scene is great. Bond is commanding while the Professor almost looks sheepish. Could it be any more obvious he's going for his gun?
Well, you might as well know, as you won't live to use the information. And what keep up?
Mr. Smith & Wesson. And you've had your 6.
It's great how he just shoots Dent so matter-of-factly. After all, he is a 00 agent, and this scene makes you believe it. At the dead of night, Bond and Quarrel go to Crab Key and have a bit of a sleep. Well, Quarrel has a bit of a drink before, so his nerves. Something tells me Quarrel's going to be very drunk by the end of this. And when Bond wakes up in the morning, yes, we get the iconic scene with the very first Bond girl, Honey Rider. The one that every Bond girl after would be compared to. Bond for a second thinks this is a musical.
Underneath the mango tree, my honey and...
But before they can get into the dance number, Quarrel runs in saying there's a boat coming. So they go hide behind some cover. And it's a good thing too, because the boat starts shooting at them. Once the boat's eventually left, Honey Rider and Quarrel go on about this dragon that's meant to be around the island.
Let's get the hell out of here.
Listen, both of you. There are no such things as dragons. What you saw was something that looked like one.
Of course, Connery. You'd know nothing about dragons. Making their way through the island, the horrible boat people return, this time on foot. So they sneakily hide underwater, using bamboo to breathe. This scene builds tension really well, with the guards slowly getting closer and closer, and the music building up and up. But the stupid dogs get distracted by some birds, and Bond and Co. can carry on. Oh no, if only they could read the sign. They make their way through the swamp, and they come face to face with the mythical dragon, which turns out just to be some vehicle with a flamethrower attached. Bond and Quarrel try to take down the vehicle with their guns, but poor Quarrel gets burnt to a crisp. If only he hadn't drank so much, he wouldn't be so damn flammable. You feel shock at the death of Quarrel, but I should have known, he was wearing a red shirt. There's no quips from Bond when it's one of his own. Devoid of quips, Bond and Honey Rider get caught and are driven to Dr. No's super secret, super amazing, super place, and are found to be super duper radioactive. And Bond has an unfortunate premature accident. What do you expect? I haven't had sex in about 20 minutes. No. They're actually washing off all the radiation, using their patented conveyor belt shower technology. Once they're all clean, they're shown in, and even given rooms to stay in. These Bond villains, they're so hospitable. They get food, coffee, everything.
Damn coffee.
Well, that's not very nice. The coffee can't be that bad. Oh, it's drugged. After a drugged-induced sleep, they go to meet the titular villain of this film, Dr. No. He must be the villain. He's got metal hands. Joseph Wiseman plays Dr. No as a cold, calculating mastermind, but one that is very much a recluse, building this underground base to hide away. A man almost delusional in his grand visions of controlling the entire world. Plus he's got metal hands. And after a little chat, Honey Rider's taken away, and Bond gets softened up a bit. Waking up hours later, a bit worse for wear. It looks like Bond won't be exiting here anytime soon, until once again Bond's mighty shoe comes into action, and Bond manages to escape. Through into some pipes. It's me, James Bond! Oh no, I know use the pipes so well. After Bond escapes the Mushroom Kingdom, he finds a radiation suit and makes his way to the main base of operations. Well, would you look at that? They're trying to stop NASA's latest rocket. Lucky Bond's turned up at the nick of time. Bond messes around a bit and raises the levels too damn high, causing everyone to have to leave because the place is going to explode. But Dr. No and Bond stay because they've got to have a fight. And that they do. But of course, they fall onto the platform that goes into the radioactive mess. While Bond manages to climb back up, Dr. No doesn't. Dr. No's metal hands may be strong, but they can't grip very well. And he falls in and dies. Bond goes and saves Honey Ryder from the world's most benign torture room, and they escape on boat just as the whole facility explodes. But oh no, they run out of fuel. But it's okay, Felix comes along to give them a tow. But Bond decides he hasn't had any sex in a while and unties the boat. And that's Dr. No. The first film in the Bond series seen today almost feels like a prototype for later James Bond films. Although a low budget film, it holds up well, having some great scenes throughout. And although later films would have bigger budgets, bigger effects and fancier locales, they wouldn't all have the charm that Dr. No has. Though it might be a little slow for some, I think it's still a great film. And I give it 3 Sean Connerys and a Roger Moore. And don't forget to join me next time as I'll be looking at From Russia with Love. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, because if you don't, I'll be very upset. You can even add me on Twitter. But anyways, I'll see you next time. Bye bye.